All right, we're going to get started. I am Vida Silva. I am the Museum Project Coordinator here at the African American Museum and Library. I want to thank all of you for participating in this informative and exciting event we have going on today. And I must say, this is actually our part two. The part one that Mr. Berry did here was so amazing. I got so many calls and emails regarding it. We had to bring him back. In fact, we're going to bring him back a couple more times because there's so much information regarding AI that a lot of people are not familiar with. But before I introduce Mr. Ethan Berry, I want to tell you a little bit about this institution. We are a research institution for African American history and culture. We started with 3 departments here. A library, the reference library is a non-circulating library because people come here to do research, and we're really particular about our books not disappearing. So if you see a title here, we will certainly go into our system and check our database and see where that book is at another branch in the Oakland Public Library. And having over 16,000 titles in our reference library makes us very efficient and ready to share the resources with our community and all our guests that come from all over the world. Now, we have a rare book collection. The rare book collection isn't stored on this first floor. It's stored in a temperature-controlled environment. And the oldest book we have is 1815. And it is not a book of an African American. However, it is a journal of a Navy captain who speaks of an African American. In this journal, we do bring some of the rare books out on occasion, but they're very fragile, as you can imagine. When we do bring them out, we issue gloves, cotton gloves, and perhaps you know why, because we have the oils in our hands, which we want those oils not to come close to our resources and artifacts here. So now the next department I'll speak of is the Archives Department. The Archives has over 200 collections, such as Ron Dellums when he was in Congress for 23 years. Also, our current mayor, Mayor Barbara Lee collection is here. We have the first African-American school teacher in the Oakland Unified School District, Miss Ida Jackson, and we have the legendary Motown designer who came to Oakland when he was 7 years old, went on and became world famous, designing beautiful garments for such Motown stars as Martha Reeves, Dinah Ross, Smokey Robinson, and also Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5. And what about our own Lenny Williams, who is from Oakland? That's just to name a few. The next department I'll talk about is the most recent department, which is located also on the first floor. And that is our seed lending library. The seed lending library has organic seeds as well as non-GMO seeds. These seeds are free to the public. You'll come in, get you some seeds from here, and hopefully you would take them home, grow them in small containers or large containers. And if you let them go to seed, we'd like for you to bring some seeds back to the institution. And that's why we call it the AMLO Seed Lending Library. And so that has created our fourth department and the most recent department here. Now we'll go upstairs to the second floor, the museum gallery. Please keep in mind, this institution is a historical landmark. It is a Carnegie building built in 1902. It served as the Oakland Public Library until I believe the 1980s when we had the earthquake here. Now, also keep in mind in 1906 there was a earthquake, I believe, in San Francisco, which had the most damage on the 1906 earthquake. This building here survived it with no damages, but keep in mind it was fairly new, so built in 1902. However, in 1989, we weren't that lucky. They were going to shut us down, tear this building down. A group of scholars and our public here, the community, got together and said, no, it's a Carnegie building. Carnegie building built $50,000 in 1902. When the earthquake came in 1989 and they were going to demolish, of course, that did not happen. So we received a grant from FEMA and also the city of Oakland, and we were able to restore this building to the tune of $11.5 million. And it was restored by an African-American architect. So we are just really proud to still be in this building. Like I said, the building did open in 2002, but you're talking about from 1902 to 2002, 100 years. There's a lot of things that you see here that are from 1902. So if you haven't been here, please think about visiting us, because you're not only going to see some wonderful collections here on African American history and culture, you're going to see a historical landmark as well. So that gives you a little information about us. And with that in mind, I want to make sure that I let you know on Saturdays at 12 noon, you need no appointment to come here to receive a tour. And the tour, we don't care if it's one person or 1,000 people that land on our doorstep. We are going to let them in and give them a tour of all the resources departments here at AMLO. Now, if it's not on a Saturday, then you need to make an appointment and we will coordinate that tour accordingly to whatever your needs are. If you want an hour tour, 2 hours tour, we can do that. Marco Frazier, my library assistant, conducts those tours, and he is very informative and he does amazing tour. So please keep that in mind. Tour AMLO when you get a moment. Now let's get back to why we're all coming together today. And that is to talk about AI, the world of AI. So I'd like to introduce you to the expert, my expert for sure, and colleague and friend for many years, a longtime supporter of this institution, Mr. Ethan Berry, the CEO of CivicRus. Ethan, how
Thank
are
you,
you?
V. I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good, good. Just happy to be here and see all of you.
All right. Thank you again for setting this up. And thank all of the attendees for joining in. My name is Ethan Berry, for those who don't know me, and I am the CEO of several startup companies, one being CivicRus. And we're happy to show what AI can do for our communities to help us build up individuals as well as families, neighborhoods, and communities, and everything above that. Today, I have with me Dr. Alina Hairston. Um, she's going to be presenting first. Um, and with that, I'd like to introduce Dr. Alina Hairston.
Hi, everyone. Good to be here. Going to keep it very short and sweet. It's good to see everyone. I'm going to start off by saying that I am one of the English majors in the world, one of the few English majors in the world who actually taught herself how to hand code HTML way back in the day during the dot-com boom, or right around the time that the dot-com explosion occurred. So I was working as a tech writer at PG&E and was told by a very wise man that I needed to learn how to build websites. And this was one of those moments in life where you hear one good line of advice and you run with it. So through that process, my technical background was limited, but smart enough to understand how computers work, electromagnetism and so on. And it is input, output, out. We are talking binary code here. So I want to just say this now to kind of contextualize how artificial intelligence is promoted to those of us who are in the educational arena. And that is an arena that has a dramatic and profound impact on everyone and everything, especially now in this time where students, particularly poor students, working class students, working poor students, homeless students, poor whites, are mainly getting almost all of their personal needs met, including their familial needs met at the school. So it's not uncommon to find students who are in school from 6 a.m. until 8 o'clock at night in many institutions across the country. And this is important because the information that young people are getting, the manner in which that information is being dispersed or distributed, is important to the development, the neurocognitive development of young people. But it's also important to our understanding as adult leaders in terms of how we are directing the cultural development of our children. And I'll just speak to, and within that perspective, I'm also a college professor, published author, and so on. But my main concerns have to do with how our young people are acclimating to society. Let me just first start off by saying that I want to give honor to Dr. Carter Woodson. And I think it's important that we see these quotes. Let me go ahead and share screen. Okay, I want to make sure that you all can see that. Can you see the screen here? Okay, so these are some quotes from Dr. Woodson, who wrote The Miseducation of the Negro. This is 1933. We are now a little bit under 100 years out from this time period. And I think it's very important to see how things are now compared to then. And this is for all people who are in the business of education, and for all of us who are concerned about the educational development of our learners. If you can control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his action. When you determine what a man shall think, you do not have to concern yourself what he will do. If you make a man feel that he is inferior, you do not have to compel him to accept an inferior status, for he will seek it himself. If you make a man think that he is justly an outcast, you do not have to order him to the back door. He will go without being told. And if there is no back door, his very nature will demand one. History shows that it does not matter who is in power or what revolutionary forces take over the government. Those who have not learned to do for themselves have to depend solely on others, never obtain any more rights or privileges in the end than they had in the beginning. Philosophers have long conceded, however, that every man has two educators. That which is given to him, or two educations, that which is given to him, and the other that which he gives to himself. Of the two kinds, the latter is by far the most desirable. Indeed, all that is most worthy in man, he must work out and conquer for himself. It is that which constitutes our real and best nourishment. What we are merely taught seldom nourishes the mind like that which we teach ourselves. And finally, those who have no record of what their forebears have accomplished lose the inspiration which comes from the teaching of biography and history. And so the perspective I'm bringing here is, as we see artificial intelligence and machine learning, which build artificial intelligence, as we see the nuanced development, those of us who know, and as we see those who don't know receive the information, what's happening is the diminishment of information, not just in terms of its form, not in terms of the form of the information, i.e. book now is text message. We've gone from being able to read a book, being able to sit still and read a book, to now send it to me in a text message. And if it's not in a text message, it's probably not worthy. So we're seeing this happening at an accelerated pace. And I think some fast facts are important here. And again, today I'm just merely giving a sort of superficial topical overview of the impact on our development, our educational development. Start here. So artificial intelligence, we're going to go to dictionary.com. And I'm sorry, can you see this here? I'm sorry, can you see the screen? Are we not on the screen?
Yeah, yes, we are on the screen.
Okay, so we see the definition.
Okay,
No,
you
you
have to
took it
share it
away.
again.
You took
Yeah,
it away.
Put it back up.
Okay. Are we there now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Artificial intelligence, the theory and development of computer systems able to perform tasks that normally require human intelligence, such as visual perception, speech recognition, decision-making, and translation between languages. Now, I want you to look at these are cognitive skills: visual perception, speech recognition, decision-making, translation between languages, body language, cultural languages, and so on. And so these are the domains that are being mitigated and impacted by artificial intelligence, particularly among young people whose brains are still developing. We know that the human brain stops developing at age 26 thereabouts, and we know that between ages 18 and 26 is where our executive functioning begins and ends its development. So decision-making skills don't really begin for most young people until 18. And we already are witnessing some delays there as well, due to, in large part, to our accelerated technological environment that we're in. Definition for critical thinking: the objective analysis and evaluation of an issue in order to form a judgment. Okay, key critical skill: can one actually discern the nature of one's entrapment, as it were, if one is not mindful, right? If I'm not aware that I'm being propagandized by a machine, and if I am believing that Facebook is where all things are true, for instance, I'm going to be misled. And not only that, but the manner in which I'm accessing information is being recorded in my brain. And my brain is becoming patterned in terms of how to access information in the future. And that's beyond the scope of this presentation, but it's important for our understanding of how we receive information and what we do with it. Okay, and then definition of educate. The Latin base of the term education is educere, and this means to bring forth, to lead out, to draw out, indeed, to shed light. And we stopped teaching Latin in public school somewhere in the 60s, and that's not coincidental in terms of how that time period coincided with the apex of the civil rights movement. And there are vast opportunities to bring forth light in our critical thinkers via AI, but we must understand that there are distinct and obvious objectives by the minority elite in this country particularly, and in the world, to ensure an enslaved class of persons whose understanding of their own entrapment of their own surroundings is not possible due to technocratic manipulation intending to diminish and erase such opportunities for self-actualization. If the library no longer has a Dewey Decimal System, for example, and that Dewey Decimal System is now provided via an electronic format, that's all well and good. If that electronic format then allows the young person or anyone to check for a book by simply doing a Google search, if you will, or a search on terms, that has now completely erased the opportunity for a person to go to the library stacks, have a tangible kinesthetic opportunity to touch books, to feel books, to not find that first book, but to then see what all other books are on that rack, to then be exposed to other titles and other names. And we make the mistake because we didn't get the code correctly because our recall wasn't quite right. We went back to the Dewey Decimal System. We found the code. We looked up the book. We found the book. We read it in the stacks, smelling the dust, smelling the wood, the entire environment of the library or the repository, as it were. Now, today, it's computer only. The kid, the adult learner, never has to leave his or her house and is never, ever having to go through the process of learning how to learn. And that's really what my concern is learning how to learn is a process that is part of our human development. And it's important that we understand what's happening here. Okay, so moving along, let me take us down here to some fast facts. Literacy rates, estimates state that between 54%, are we there now? We missed it again, didn't we?
No, we can see it.
Okay, thank you. Estimates state that between 54% of American adults read at or below the 6th grade level. 21% of adults in the US are illiterate in 2024, and 20% of that 54% are reading below the 5th grade level. That is as of 2024. And this comes out of, I have my references at the end. This comes from the National Literacy Institute. So low levels of literacy are certainly correlated with high levels of poverty. And we are spending $2.2 trillion a year simply because we don't have high literacy. Media literacy is an issue. We have young people actually asking our educational officials to provide media literacy in courses, just like with our financial literacy courses, and we're not offering them. Very few students are being able to access those courses. So we have algorithms, which of course lead to disinformation, misinformation, and omissions, and muddying the murky waters, as it were. Attention spans. According to one study, the average attention span among Americans is currently only 47 seconds. Another study states that the average teen's attention span is 8 seconds. Lack of civics understanding. According to the 2022 Annenberg Public Policy Center, less than half of US adults, 47%, could name all 3 branches of government, and that was down from 56% in 2021 and the first decline since 2016. We might think this is good, but look at the numbers. It's amazing. The number of respondents who could, unprompted, name each of the 5 freedoms guaranteed by the First Amendment also declined sharply in some cases. For example, less than 1 in 4 people could name freedom of religion, down from 56%, and so on. Over half of Americans continue to assert incorrectly that Facebook is required to let all Americans express themselves freely on its platform under its First Amendment. So, in other words, instead of understanding that if you need to go to Facebook to say something, one is believing that they have to actually register or they have to have Facebook, and that's not true. Again, media literacy. We have this term brain rot now among many of our neuroscientists, and this is speaking to what's happening to the diminishment of gray matter in our children's brains. And now we have actual brain scans that are available that show high similarity between social media addicted brains, brains that are addicted to social media, and the brains of drug addicts. The same type of diminishments are there, and high levels of activity are taking place in parts of the brain where there should not be high levels of activity. And if anyone has ever spent time with young people, you can see, for the most part, that the attention span is so short. But to be able, for a young person to be able to do basic skills, i.e. memorization, i.e. temporary recall, we're finding that that is becoming, it's a very big problem. We cannot say for sure that AI is to blame, and we cannot say for sure that internet usage is to blame, but we know that we live in this technologically mediated environment, and we know that transactionary relationships abound versus communal relationships. I talk to you only to get something from you. I am going to take this test only because you're going to give me something, versus let us do something for the sake of doing something, i.e. learning, building community, and so forth. Okay. Pew Research Center says as of 2023 that teens use social media at least 4 hours a day. And again, I'm going to say here, all of this and more contributes to our current culture of cheating, of failing up, and of moral turpitude. Now, this is an association I make on my own. It's anecdotal, but we are seeing on a level I've never seen in my lifetime. I'm not that old, but I'm old enough. Professors, students, clergy, politicians, administrators have all been caught cheating using AI and then get lauded for doing so. So we put you on, we front you out, and you are discovered educator, administrator, clergy person, or leader, or official, that you've been using AI to conduct business and personal transaction, and you've been using AI in a way that is not right and not ethical. And not only are you not punished, but it becomes the norm. And that is where we are truly now on the danger, on the edge. We are now in the danger zone, where we are normalizing, making it okay to not be able to remember things. And here we have this. Just Google it. And hey, Siri. And I tell my students every day, Google is not a verb. It is a brand name. And if you're going to use it as a verb, at least tell Google et al. To pay you some money, because you've been freely advertising its brand by using it as part of your language practice. Google is not a verb, is not a word. And Siri's not human, and she does not care one whit about you. Okay. So from there, I just want to offer some resources and what we can do. We need to be thinking in terms of individualism and capitalism as being not a bad thing always, but in this particular cultural moment that we're in, we need to be getting back to community involvement and what it means to be financially literate. One can be a capitalist, but also be a community-centered person. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. If something's too easy, too perfect, and too shallow, then it's likely a waste of money, time, and faith. Our intellectual health is on the line. Respect, resistance, recovery, revolution. We need to get back to basics. Kids and adults come together, read a book, find, go outside, walk, name things, identify things, know what things are, understand how a battery is made. If you're going to drive a vehicle, understand what transmissions are. Do not go to the computer to find these things out. Take the time to do things by hand, write by hand. The research is unequivocal on this. The research has been on this, has said the same thing for the last 25 years. We do things by hand. We do things in our body. We tend to learn more. AI can be used as, an augmentation of some things. It can be a supplement, but it cannot account for lived human experience, and it cannot replace our lived human experience. And I wanted to tell folks, we've got some resources, Electronic Frontier Foundation. They're based out of San Francisco, wonderful group. Actually, one of the guys who works there just won the Pulitzer, the Nobel Prize in Literature. Center for Digital Democracy, wonderful place for families as well. Internet Archive, you can see old school movies, and you can find copies of books for free. Local library, we can do read a book a week. We've got that going on in many places around the country. Writing by hand and applied learning. Again, civic development, of course, Ethan is going to be talking about. Got to get back to basics. During segregation and during the development of this country, the one-room schoolhouse served multiple purposes. One of the purposes that the one-room schoolhouse did is it made everyone involved in the educational arena accountable to one another. So the 8th grader had to be looking out for the 3rd grader. And while the 8th grader is going to be an 8th grader, the 3rd grader is watching the 8th grader, and there may be some disconnects and whatnot, but people were forced to reckon with one another. And technological mediation has now allowed for us to be so separated from one another that we are afraid to say hello to each other in person. And we want to use COVID as an excuse. And no, that's not the reason why we're afraid to talk to one another. We're afraid to talk to one another because we've literally almost lost our ability to be socially developed. And if you look at the research from current employers, and they're talking about the Gen Zs and how they don't want to hire them, and they say #1 issue, lack of social skills. So this cannot be an accident, and we're all responsible for this. During segregation as well, teachers lived with families, teachers traveled. I'm not advocating for segregation, but I'm advocating for some of the things that we've lost. And you'll hear this from all sectors, all ethnicities, all cultural groups, that with the advent of AI, we must remind ourselves it's just a machine. And if you keep playing with it long enough, it will break. But you gotta know how it works. So take the time to go to YouTube and teach yourself computers. Learn what artificial intelligence actually is, but never ever disallow yourself the opportunity to learn about how things work. And learning should be hard. It should not be easy. Okay, thank you, everyone. And I have references here. And do we have time for the video or?
Yes, we do.
So here's some inspiration here, and we're gonna take a quick look. Probably have to go back and stop share.
No, it's showing.
Oh, did I stop share? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Right on.
What does it mean to be American?
Being an American means that I can truly be myself in any way that I feel fits.
Using your opportunities and your privileges to help others that don't have the same as you. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, to believe in the fact that you deserve to be here.
I think being an American is an experience. It's the community that you build here.
What it is to interpret the laws in your own way.
Americanness is a decision to a certain extent.
We're the future, so we have a big say in what's going on right now.
I think that more young people should vote because it's important that everyone has their views heard.
When I hear the classic thing of like, my vote doesn't matter, and I respond to them and I say, well, what's something that you care about?
Immigration is an issue that's really close to my heart.
I am really concerned about education in New York City. New York has the most segregated school system in the United States.
I hate the idea that people just simply can't afford to take care of themselves. You know, everyone deserves to have health care.
I think civic engagement means being able to recognize the issues that are going on in your community and connecting that to a reason why you would want to vote.
Young people are sharing our ideas all the time, getting connected with each other all the time, organizing all the time.
Because we have all this access to information, we've been able to use it to understand causes that we are passionate about and to actually work to make a difference with them.
My generation, I feel, is really steadfast in making sure that the changes that we want are seen.
There's something so magnetic about, I don't know, adolescents right now. We're allowed to have different opinions. We should collaborate on the best solution.
I want to see everybody together as one. I want to see everybody passionate about the same thing, and I want to see everybody trying to get to the same place, the same goals.
I feel like now people are actually taking us seriously, and they're actually seeing the work that we do and the work that we put into and how serious we are about making a change for not only our generation, but for the future generations to come.
There are young folks that I see in my day-to-day life that are really making a difference, and they're pushing back on this narrative that we are apathetic, and I think that we really aren't. We really do care, and it's a matter of making sure people are listening to what we need.
Right. Such a beautiful thing. So that's it. I'm done. I've got references here that I can send out to Vida later on. Thank you so much for your time, everyone.
Thank you so much, Professor Hairston. That was beautiful. And that leads into my presentation. And in order for us to save time, I'm going to share my screen. And we're going to proceed with my presentation. I hope everybody enjoyed the presentation by Professor Hairston, because she hit on many key points that are the reason why myself and my team have put so much time and energy into developing CivicRus. I'm going to pose a question to everyone that's in attendance right now, just as a rhetorical question. Have you seen any AI companies, projects, platforms that aim to help us solve our social problems? Just keep that in the back of your head. And if you have heard or seen anything like that, send me a message during this presentation. For those who don't know me, my name is Ethan Berry. My educational training and background is in electronics engineering, computer science, and multicultural studies. I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I'm the founder and CEO of CivicRus Inc. CivicRus, we call it CRU for short, is a software and hardware engineering company. We deal with machine learning, artificial intelligence, automation, robotics, etc. One of the things that is really important to me is to set an example that we don't have to beg to be included in this new era of technology. A lot of people are waiting for venture capitalist companies to give them money to do what they have as a vision in this new era. Myself and my team, we don't take that approach. We have bootstrapped what we've been able to do and combined our talents to develop or begin to develop, I should say, some AI programs and platforms that will help, as I said before, individuals, families, neighborhoods, communities, cities, counties, states, and the entire United States of America is our goal. Build up instead of tearing down. What my presentation is going to be about is this topic of smart cities. And a lot of you know about smart cities, and maybe some of you don't. Smart homes, that's a topic that everybody has heard of. Machine learning, artificial intelligence, automation, robotics, software and hardware engineering in the 21st century. A few points on the pros and cons of ML and AI, automation, robotics, and the software hardware engineering. Cutting edge innovations are shaping cities, communities, neighborhoods, and families right now in the present day 21st century. You might not think of the technology as shaping your family or you as a person, but it is. And I'll get into that later. First topic, smart cities. A smart city, and I'm this particular presentation is just for layman terms. The next event will get deeper into the technology. So if you have any questions, please feel free to send a message and I'll answer them after the event. Please include your email address. I'm trying to be cognizant of everyone's time. Smart city uses information and communications technology and the Internet of Things to connect, optimize, and enhance city operations and services for its inhabitants. The core components of smart city fall into categories that include technology, infrastructure, applications, and human factors that work together to create a more efficient, sustainable, and livable urban environment. And I want you to pay attention to the urban aspect of this, because that's the population that they want to manipulate. If you're in suburbia, not so much, because if you're in suburbia, you have enough money to not be tracked, followed, have all your information and data captured and used for everything from marketing to you to picking you up because you're an illegal immigrant at some point. And we see that happening today. The foundational components of smart cities, these technologies provide the essential framework for a smart city to function. Information and communication technologies are the key. This includes robust high-speed broadband and wireless networks, such as 5G and Wi-Fi, that enable seamless communication between different systems and different devices. This is called the Internet of Things. The vast network of physical sensors and devices embedded throughout the city collect and transmit data on everything from traffic flow and air quality to energy consumption and waste levels, and much more. We'll get into that as well. Data analytics and artificial intelligence. The enormous amount of data collected from IoT devices is analyzed using AI and machine learning to generate actionable insights. There's a word that the industry, the data science industry uses, is called intent. They use the language that they capture via devices and the internet and applications on the internet to look at what your intent is. And based off of the algorithm for the intent, they categorize you, and they then use additional algorithms to market to you, to sell you stuff, and to manipulate you. And we'll get into that at a later point as well. Another foundational component is cloud and edge computing. These technologies manage the immense data flow. And when we say immense, imagine how often we all use our smartphones, our computers at work and at home. And imagine all the technology that has been deployed in electronic vehicles, in city, local municipalities. It's a tremendous amount of data. And having the ability to analyze that data and, if need be, pinpoint, for an example, a particular vehicle by its license plate, gives the municipality great power, because they're not just looking at the owner of that vehicle, they're looking at everyone that owner of the vehicle is associated with. There are websites where you can literally look up people like Been Verified and get a lot of information, not only on the person that you're looking for, but their entire family. So this is what we're dealing with in terms of smart cities. Cybersecurity is another foundational component of smart cities. Robust security measures are necessary to protect cities' critical infrastructures. And we've all heard about cities being hacked and having to pay a ransom to resume their computer systems to take care of their citizens. This is going to continue to be a problem, even though we haven't heard as much about hacking happening in our news. Does not mean that it hasn't been happening. And so we need to understand this as citizens and put our input rather in on how these things should be dealt with public policy, public laws, so that our information is not used against us. And that's where it stands now. I don't know if you pay attention to the news, but there's a lot of stuff going on with ICE and illegal immigrants. And unfortunately, they're grabbing Americans, while they say that they're just after the illegal immigrants. So another foundational component are the application areas and services that run on a smart cities technology foundation. Smart mobility, transportation, intelligent traffic management, sensors and AI-driven systems monitor traffic in real time, adjusting signals to optimize flow and reduce congestion. But that's not all it does. It monitors parks, it monitors neighborhoods. Recently, a friend of mine had her car stolen right from in front of her house. And she called me, and she was really disturbed by the whole incident because it was caught on her security cameras. And because it was caught on her security cameras, I made the suggestion that she contact the Oakland Police Department and give them the camera footage and tell them to use their technology to find out which way the car went by looking at the license plate. And she refuted me like they don't have that kind of technology, da 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 da. So in order to, help her out, I emailed her the information about the cameras and the technology in the city of Oakland. She was able to use that, contact the police officer, show the police officer the footage. The police officer was able to use their what they call SWAT cameras and identify where the car was an hour before she contacted him. She subsequently was able to drive around the neighborhood that the police said the car was spotted in using the SWAT cameras, which, by the way, they don't tell the public that they have. And she found her car. This is an example of understanding what smart cities are and what they're capable of that can empower us to participate in public policies that will help us and not just help municipalities. We have to be thinking about how we fit into this new era. And another foundational component is eco-friendly options. Of course, electric vehicles, charging stations, bike sharing programs to promote sustainable and interconnected transport saves our environment from smog that's generated by fossil fuels, run vehicles and motorcycles. And so that's always a good thing. Smart energy is another set of the using multiple energy generating technologies, wind, solar, fossil fuels, to manage giving power to the populations that, exist across the United States. Funny thing, most of the United States population live on the coast. In the Midwest, the population of the United States is very, very small, comparatively speaking, to the populations near the West Coast and the East Coast. Of course, with energy, we're trying to do energy efficient buildings, using smart meters, automated systems to help regulate heating, cooling, lighting, reducing overall consumption. There are good things about AI and smart cities, and there's questionable things about AI and smart cities. Another foundational component is the environment and sustainability monitoring systems. Again, using IoT sensors, tracking air quality, pollution levels, and weather conditions, providing real-time data to help protect the public health. That's a good thing. But they're trying to take that away from us at this point with the current administration. And by the way, CivicRus is a nonpartisan organization. I want to make that loud and clear, because we're not about trying to point fingers at anyone. We're trying to bring solutions to problems that may exist in communities. That's our mission statement. Smart waste management, again, with IoT sensors in waste bins, notify city service when they're full, optimizing collection routes and reducing fuel consumption. Water management, advancing metering infrastructure, helps water usage, detects leaks, and improves conservation efforts. Now, this is the part where I want to show you a video, because this is really important. Smart governance and services. E-governance is a term that they're using for smart cities, which they describe as the digital platforms make city services more accessible and transparent, enabling citizens to participate in decision-making and access information online, enhance public safety with AI-powered surveillance, data analysis, and integrated systems to help authorities detect potential safety risks and improve emergency response times. Now, what I would have liked for them to also have included in that is something about education, particularly something about literacy, so that we could have better educational outcomes and we wouldn't have to worry as much. It wouldn't get rid of crime completely, but we wouldn't have to worry as much about, potential safety risks and as far as crime is concerned. Now, I want to go and share with you a video that talks about what happened to this Nobel Prize winner, and I'll play it.
Thank you for, hey, Tom.
Okay. So I wanted to play that clip to give this some context. We're living in an era where this is happening in the United States right now. Just something to think about. And if the people don't rise to the challenge and demand that the Constitution be followed, first of all, they have to know about the Constitution, and that requires them to be able to read. And that goes back to the literacy problem. And when you look at the numbers that Professor Hairston talked about previously, that's scary, because almost half of the country can't read at a 6th grade level. Citizen engagement is the answer. And that's why we believe CivicRus is going to be a very powerful platform for people to both learn about civics and become more civically engaged using all of the technology that I mentioned previously: machine learning, artificial intelligence, automation, robotics, IoT, cybersecurity. All of those things are going to go into the products that we provide for the public and corporations and governments to use within the United States. Smart living, connected homes. I mentioned earlier that we're going to talk about smart homes. Contribute data to the larger city network and enable remote control of energy, security, and appliances. But it goes much further than that. It also gives them ostensibly access to your television stations so they can direct commercials specifically at individual homes. Think about that. The improvement of public health is something that is what's being thought about right now in our United States Congress. And I pray that they figure this out and understand that people's lives, health, depend on them getting medical treatment and proper health care. But again, that's one of the foundational components of a smart city. The concept of smart cities can be traced back to the 1970s. So this is a very old concept in that it was only becoming modernized once the technology was available to put all of these disparate components of a city, of municipalities together to get everything to work together. And I wanted to show this simply to make it plain that this is not new. But you might ask yourself, why aren't we hearing people talk about smart cities? I mean, we're hearing about them talk about, AI, machine learning, artificial intelligence, artificial superintelligence, quantum computing, et cetera, et cetera. Well, my personal opinion is they're not talking about it because they don't want you to be afraid. And what would you be afraid of, you might say? You might be afraid of them targeting you for any reason because of your belief system, the way you look, the color of your skin, et cetera, et cetera. This is why civics learning has to become one of those self-learning goals that every person must participate in for themselves, because they don't teach it in schools anymore. They teach it in the universities, but K through 12, you don't get this anymore. And this is very important because if you participate, you can stop things from happening instead of, after they happen, marching in the streets and complaining. Just my personal opinion. Now, this right here, I want to take a couple of minutes and kind of explain. We hear about AI and we hear about it approaching what we call, in human terms, consciousness. And this gentleman, David Chalmers, is a well-known philosopher, and he explained how and why physical brain processes give rise to subjective phenomenal experiences that only human beings can have. It's like in the moment, what is it like? Feeling, seeing red, or hearing music. It contrasts with easy problems like how the brain processes information or controls behavior. While the easy problems can be explained by identifying neural mechanisms, the hard problem remains an unsolved enigma, leaving an explanatory gap between physical brain activity and subjective experiences. And let me summarize that. In terms of machine learning and artificial intelligence, machines are good at doing repetitive tasks. They're good at finding patterns. They're good at collecting data and a lot of other things. But they don't have a consciousness And I liken that to a spirit. So when you think about all of the advertising and marketing that you hear, I want you to understand that when it comes to the topic of AI becoming closer to human consciousness, that is called the hard problem of consciousness. And they haven't been able to figure it out in human beings. So they can't duplicate it with machines. And I hope that makes sense. But we'll get into that in our future events. The whole idea with empowering smart cities using ML, AI, robotics, drones, automation, IoT devices, and software is to educate the less fortunate and get them on an even playing field where they are participating in the civics process that we call democracy. And again, we're a nonpartisan company. We have no intention on being partisan in any shape, form, or fashion. In fact, that's part of the problem, because the us versus them political public policy making tactics have got us to this point. And only the people can set this ship straight and get things back to where we're all talking to each other instead of hiding behind keyboards and sending, AI generated memes as public policy. And the other thing that I wanted to say is that accountability is really important. And in order to hold our elected and non-elected officials accountable, we have to participate in civic engagement. And to that end, one of our first products that I'm going to be releasing, it's in user testing right now. Can you guys still see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. It's called Casa Point, and it will be one of our first platforms that will allow people to communicate for business purposes in a civics environment. And we look forward to releasing that as soon as possible. But we got to make sure we work out the bugs and make sure the performance of the platform is such that, thousands, if not millions of people can be using it at the same time. And that's the end of my presentation. I wanted to be cognizant of people's time and give room for any questions that people might have. So if we have any questions, are these questions able to be sent in the chat, Vita?
Yeah, so if
Yes.
anyone's interested, make your comments in the chat or come off of mute.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, Ethan, thank you so much. It's very informative. And Dr. Hairston as well. I want to thank her for being a part of this program. And I learned a lot, and I'm sure everyone else did as well. So if there are any questions, if you could put them in the chat and Marco can read them off to you, Ethan.
Okay.
So while we're doing that, You want to talk a little bit about your part 2 coming up? What issues will you be tackling for part 3?
Yeah, for the next event, we're going to be talking about using AI to empower people to build better communities. And that's where we'll get a
part
little
2.
bit deeper into how we can be proactive to use the technologies to benefit what we need instead of allowing the corporations to dictate everything.
I see. And excuse me, that's part 2. And also the part 3. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What's coming up?
Well,
Part
again,
2 is actually November the 15th, and part 3 we will air it December the 13th.
right. And again, we'll go deeper into how AI actually works, how machine learning actually works. And we'll use the use case that we develop in part 2, which is in November, for the December, how machine learning works and how the AI product software application is developed and how that is used to help build up a person or a family or a neighborhood or a community or a city based off of the use case that we discuss in the next event.
So there are a couple questions. Linda first asks, is privacy a thing of the past century?
Linda, no, it is not. And that's why cybersecurity is a very important foundation of this AI, machine learning, automation, robotics era. The question is, when are we going to put some laws around what that privacy is? Because right now, there are no laws around it. And that's why the civic engagement has to be, better.
Okay. And then one other, well, two-part from Mary. It says, has this been presented to schools or programs like Hidden Genius or to the Oakland City Council? And also, how can we get civics taught in the schools?
Okay, so let me just go through the question as it's written. We haven't presented this to the schools or to other nonprofit organizations like Hidden Genius or to the City of Oakland City Council yet. I did go by and make an introduction this past Monday with the mayor's office, and they were very interested in setting up a meeting, but they also wanted to attend the events that are coming up, and they needed to have advance notice. So we're going to give them that advance notice. And the other question, how can we get civics taught in the schools? We're planning to talk with the school board as well as the mayor's office and address that question. So the answers will have to be continued on that one, because that is what we're up against. It's not being taught in school, so we don't want to run into a buzzsaw by pointing the finger at the school. we want to work with schools. We want to work with the city in order to work with nonprofit organizations and corporations and government agencies to solve the many problems that we have with not only school, but with our municipalities and, homelessness. And again, the question that I asked everybody in the beginning is, if you ever hear of an AI platform that is being used to solve some of our social problems, please let me know. You can email me at ethan@civicsrus.com. And I'm typing that in right now. And yeah, I should also share with you guys the actual website to CivicRus. So let me share my screen again. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a nonprofit side, civicsrus.org. And we have a for-profit side, civicsrus.com.
So who were those children in that picture?
Those were students that were part of our mentoring, tutoring, and life skill trainings program that we did at AMLO. We did that for quite a few years before COVID hit.
Yeah. So what are they learning? They're learning civics, or are they coding, or what are they doing?
We were doing everything. We were helping them, tutoring them with their homework.
Oh, okay.
Educating them on life skill training. We were mentoring them. We were taking them on campus visits to corporations. One of my good longtime colleagues and friends, Eric Betts, I don't know if Eric is still on, but he allowed us to bring a van load of kids to VMware. And when I tell you the light in their eyes meant everything to me, because you could see the transformation happening in real time when they saw what was possible. A lot of these kids don't get out of their neighborhood. We heard Professor Hairston talk about not being able to get funding to just bring the kids to AMLO. We have to do better. Any more questions?
Dr. Young also asks, have you connected with your assembly person? I think you may have answered this one already regarding privacy.
Yeah, I've reached out only recently because we weren't ready to actually announce what we're doing right now. And I'm looking for support in helping us have those meetings with our congressmen and senators, our mayors, city council members, all through California and across the nation. So if anyone can help with that, please contact me. And I like the question, otherwise you can pull them into sponsor such legislation. I actually have written a bill that I proposed and sent to a couple of Congress people, and I'll have to who asked that question? Dr. Nancy Young. I'll have to share that bill with you because I should have included it in this presentation, but I'm waiting to hear back from the congressman that I sent it to about 2 weeks ago. And I haven't heard back from him yet, but we're trying to use all means to make sure that CivicRus is sustainable and that it is functional and useful for building up individuals and communities. And in fact, Dr. Nancy Young, I'll give you a call because this is very important. And I know you having the experience of being the ex-mayor of Tracy, you have a lot of contacts. And I appreciate you asking the question. Any more questions?
So when are those upcoming events? I didn't get those down, or can you put them in the chat?
Vita, can you and Marco put those in the chat?
Yes, we'll put them in it. Marco, we'll put both of them in the chat. And I have a question for you, just really curious. In your presentation, you mentioned a lot of positive aspects about AI, although I've heard a lot of negativeness as well, starting with your first presentation here. But so with the positive part of it, why don't we hear more about that? Like, for instance, being able to, AI being able to manage disasters in advance and emergency responses. It's good for that. Why don't we hear more about that?
Because that's not what companies that are being funded by the government care about. That's the simple answer.
Okay.
But that's what we care about, and that's what CivicRus will be spending our time doing. Right now, we're just in the beginning stages, and but that's where we want to spend our time. We don't want to complain to them about what they're not doing. We're looking at ourselves to be self-sufficient and learn from that proximate zone of development that exists already. We know what can be done. The question is, do we have the willingness to do it on our own? Or are we going to just sit back and complain about it? We choose not to sit back and complain. So by every means necessary, we are going to get funding to sustain CivicRus, both on the nonprofit side and the for-profit side. And hopefully we'll be able to do that sooner rather than later.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Okay, so Marco will put those 2 dates in the chat. November the 15th will be part 2, 1 to 2:30. And it is also virtual. And December the 13th, part 3, will begin at 3 to 4:30, also virtual. So Marco, you can enter that in the chat. Well, Ethan, I want to just thank you and your guests for participating in today's event. I took a lot of notes, so I have some homework to do regarding AI. especially in the workplace, is very important. I did have several of my staff were able to chime in and listen to the presentation as well. So it's been very helpful for not only our invited guests, but to the staff here at AMLO. So thank you so much to all of you for chiming in. And Ethan, I look forward to part 2.
All right.
And I'm going to read up on my notes. And so I'm going to have some additional questions for you for sure.
Hey, bring it on. Bring it on.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. This was informative.
Thank you so much for
you.
attending.